It's a time for truth.
This is an ecosystem that's obviously in its infancy right now, but there are a number of different companies trying to get into it.
A time to rise to the challenge.
We're going 40 miles an hour with no hand on the wheel.
Just as Americans have always done. I believe in America and her people, and I believe we can stand up and restore our promise.
Yeah, look at that. It has like all these, it's aware of all these beings.
It's going to take a new generation of courageous conservatives.
And I think consumers are getting more and more comfortable with this as a prospect. I mean, look at cruise control, look at automatic parking, look at lane warnings, look at blind spot detection. These are all
conservatives. And I'm ready to stand with you.
To lead the fight.
Automatically it starts, scaring people that there's going to be a potential here.
To lead the fight.
More than half a dozen tech companies are now testing their self-driving cars on the open road. But new data show there have been some bumps along the way.
When I started off in programming, it was fairly unusual.
She wouldn't tell anyone she was my mom.
Occasionally I did. When they got euphoric over him, I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you like him so much because he's my son." Sitting in the driveway. Well, that was a very painful time. Ooh, we've got a problem here. We've got to change this situation. So I had a question of my running after him. I had to keep up with him because he was going in every direction at once. Because he's my son, and I love him.
I love you, Mom.
Google has invested heavily as a pioneer of self-driving cars. Technology it believes will be safer and more efficient than human drivers.
I had a very interesting bedtime conversation with Caroline not so long ago, where she wanted to know what was going on in some other countries and what the word invasion meant. And when I explained to her that everything that we are doing, the events, the dinners, the times that Daddy asks people for funds and their time, is not for us. It's not for our family. It's for all the families around America who have the hope of reaching the American dream. And as a 6-year-old, she got it for the first time.
When driving, we may head down a road or alley by accident and be forced to turn around. So what we are demonstrating here is a way to change direction when there are no side streets or driveways to help us. It is called a three-point turnabout. To successfully perform this maneuver, the driver wants to drive his car as far to the right as possible.
If you look at Islamism, it is a theocratic and political ideology that says that they are compelled to use violence and force to murder anyone that doesn't share their radical faith or to forcibly convert them. And it is a cancer, and we will not defeat radical Islamic terrorism unless and until we have a commander-in-chief willing to say those words.
Next, put your left turn signal on. Now, turn the steering wheel all the way to the left.
What an incredible nation that you can come here with nothing and achieve anything. And right now, that opportunity is getting harder and harder for people to realize.
As you can see, we run out of space.
Echoed President Obama's attack. He said it was anti-American, and he said, gosh, his ancestors were Irish and Italian, and we didn't block them. And I responded to Pat Leahy. I said, you know what? On my mother's side, my ancestors were Irish and Italian. The difference was they weren't coming here to blow up and murder innocent civilians. And
you still hold those values, but still want to live in America, or maybe even more extreme values. There's no vetting process that I can think of that will ascertain what is in the human heart, especially because
life isn't about material gain. Life isn't about a fancy car. Life isn't about a fancy television on the wall. Life is about making a difference in other people's lives.
Oh no, what do? Never fear, we have the reverse gear.
Who will have blood on their hands?
Well, listen, we know they did that in Europe. We know that at least one of the terrorists who committed these horrible attacks in Paris came in with the refugees, and President Obama and Hillary Clinton and the Democrats are willing to allow those same refugees to come to our shores, and apparently they're willing to just roll the dice and take the risk that hundreds or, God forbid, thousands of Americans will be murdered by jihadists. And you know, one of the things that's striking, Sean, you know what seemed to make President Obama the angriest? Is that I drew a distinction. Well, yes, but in particular that I drew a distinction and said there's a different circumstance for the Christians who are being persecuted, for the Christians who are facing genocide. You know, ISIS is crucifying Christians. They are beheading Christians.
He accepted everything. The past was alterable. The past never had been altered. Oceania was at war with Eastasia. Oceania had always been at war with Eastasia. Jones, Aronson and Rutherford were guilty of the crimes they were charged with. He had never seen the photograph that disproved their guilt. It had never existed, he had invented it. He remembered remembering contrary things, but those were false memories, products of self-deception. How easy it all was. Only surrender, and everything else followed.
Involved in debates, and actually you were as passionate as I was, as a 9-year-old.
Well, it was interesting back then. I remember 1980, the media did everything they could to paint Ronald Reagan as this wild-eyed cowboy from California who was going to lead us into World War III. And I have to admit, in the last couple of years, happening again, I see it all over the country. Men and women are waking up. People who've never been involved in politics are standing up and saying, what we're doing isn't working. We got to get back to the... There was an urgency to it. Those media hacks who try to go after my dad, I think, frankly, are out of their league. If they want to attack me, that's fine. Knock themselves out. But in trying to tear my father down, they reveal, in trying to tear my father down, they reveal a lot about themselves. They reveal a lot about what they're afraid of.
It is to restore America to its former greatness.
The only answer
is the same answer we saw in 1980. You know, I think today is very much like...
And now here it is. Your moment of zen.
It wasn't something kind of interesting that you, oh, read the newspaper, that's kind of nice. There was an urgency to it. Pretty scary.
And Ted was so tired that he made me drive.